Hello, this is Sarah Brash. Welcome back to my channel. So I want to do a video about the Me Too movement, and particularly in the context of the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp defamation trial. And it is horrific. It is admittedly horrific, but in the context of the admittedly horrific online vilification, mobbing, harassment of Amber Heard. And I also want to talk about how there's been many pundits and journalists who've written pieces recently about how this signals the death of Me Too. This is the death of Me Too. Me Too is dead. Me Too is over. Because look at the way that, Amber Heard is being vilified, is being abused, is being harassed, is being stalked, is being deluged with death and rape threats, is being mocked on SNL. Look at the way she's being treated just because she's an imperfect victim. So everybody talks about how Amber Heard is an imperfect victim because allegedly she was also abusive to Johnny Depp. And I don't really, this video is not about whether or not, the claims of Johnny Depp or the claims of Amber Heard are true. I tend to believe that Amber Heard did defame Johnny Depp, but I don't know them. I don't know, their lives. I don't know what happened between them behind closed doors, and no one cares about my opinion on that subject. But what I do want to talk about is the fact that there's just been this sort of like, slew of articles about how signals the death of Me Too. This is the death of Me Too. The way that the horrifying way that Amber Heard is being vilified online, being abused, being mocked, being ridiculed, that this is the death of Me Too. Me Too is dead now. And people like Rebecca Kavanaugh have said this. Of course, that attorney who was formerly with the appeal, who, spent more than 3 years, now more than 4 years, waging a campaign to destroy me, calling for me to be, sentenced to social death or suicide, by calling for me and literally trying to get me disbarred, expelled, fired, prosecuted for an utter non-event and non-crime at Yale from more than 4 years ago. Of course, the Living or Not Being While Black hate crime hoax at Yale. So, and then also Roxane Gay has been saying this, Josie Duffy Rice has been saying this, Tressie McMillan Cottom has been saying this, all of the usual woke KKK monsters who participated in the witch hunt at Yale, who have been pushing obvious Living While Black race and hate crime hoaxes for the past 4 years. So this is now, they're all screaming and yelling like, banshees, that this is signaling the death of Me Too. Me Too is officially dead. The backlash against Me Too, which was always going to happen, has now officially killed Me Too. This is the narrative from the powers that be, from the woke KKK monsters, from the fake news press and the moral outrage industry. So what I want to talk about in this video is that this is ludicrous. This is an asinine thing to say. This is a ridiculous thing for them to say, because Me Too has been dead for a while, and Living While Black has been dead for a while. And they arose together, basically, Living While Black followed on the heels of Me Too. Me Too came first, and then also, now they're going down together, hand in hand. And basically, Living While Black went down first and took Me Too down with it. And this is why. So, and the people who killed Me Too are the ones that are wailing right now about the death of Me Too. But they're in fact the ones who killed Me Too, the woke KKK monsters like Roxane Gay, like Ijeoma Oluo. So they killed MeToo. They killed it because they killed it in the process of killing Living While Black. Because Living While Black was essentially almost entirely turned into a race hoax and a blood sport to target and demonize white women. And, you know, it was the Karen's Gone Wild videos and the just rash of laws being promulgated in state and municipal legislatures across the US that are grossly, brazenly unconstitutional. The Karen Acts, you know, they're illegal bills of attainder. I was cited in the legislative history of a number of the acts, and they actually called the New York statute, they actually referred to it, the politicians, the legislators referred to it, which is pretty much the dumbest thing ever that they could have done. The legislators in New York referred to it as the Amy Cooper Act, and the fake news press did as well. Just basically saying, like, announcing, proclaiming that this is grossly unconstitutional, and grossly unconstitutional bill of attainder, which is basically when the legislature basically creates a law that says that someone is a criminal, that a person or a group is a criminal. Like they legislate that into being, and that's what the Karen Acts were. And they're also brazenly unconstitutional new form of hate crime legislation, because in traditional hate crime legislation, there's at least an attempt. The legislators are at least feigning that they're trying to abide by the Constitution, the US Constitution. And with the Karen Acts, they just threw that right out the window. They just said, we're not even going to pretend like we're trying to abide by the First Amendment or the, you know, fair trial constitutional protections. We're not even gonna wave our hands around, no smoke and mirrors. We're just straight up violating the Constitution. And so, and I've done other videos about that topic. I'll do more as well. But so Living While Black was destroyed, and actually part of the reason why I didn't speak out right away and go public right away and start fighting back and defending myself right away in May 2018 after the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax at Yale is because I was worried about trying to protect the Living While Black movement. I was worried about trying to save the Living While Black movement, and it was destroyed. It was utterly destroyed by charlatans and frauds and bigots and liars like Tressie McMillan Cottom, like Roxane Gay, like Rebecca Kavanaugh, like Josie Duffy Rice, like Deborah Archer of the ACLU, like the ACLU, so like the Appeal. So Living While Black was utterly destroyed because they turned it into a race hoax in its entirety by pushing the most obvious race and hate crime hoaxes, including Napping While Black at Yale. And they did this because, and they exploited the shootings and killings of Black men and boys and women and girls, including by the police. They exploited them, and they turned the entirety of the movement into a race hoax and a blood sport to target and demonize white women. And they particularly went after vulnerable white women, those with seeming or obvious mental health disabilities like myself, and those without resources like myself, thinking that they were the perfect victims, that they could just get these victims to commit suicide, just get Twitter to ban them, to silence them, and that these were the perfect victims, perfect people for them to drive to suicide via woke KKK cancel culture and trial by Twitter to make Black trauma, moral outrage, industry money hand over fist. So this is what happened to Living While Black. And the reason why this took Me Too down with it is because it was meant specifically the Living While Black race hoax, which I also refer to as the Great Racism Scare of 2018 to 2022. It was targeting white women, just like the Karen Acts were specifically demonizing and targeting white women. The Living While Black movement that was turned into the Living While Black race hoax was about targeting white women, demonizing white women. And so this is why it decimated Me Too. It killed Me Too at the same time that it killed Living While Black. And it's because all of a sudden, everything that they had been saying about Me Too, believe women, that if you're in a situation where you feel unsafe or uncomfortable, you should speak up, which is exactly what I did. The Living While Black, the Napping While Black hate crime hoax at Yale began on February 24th, 2018, simply because I took reasonable precautions to enter my dorm room safely, my isolated Yale dorm room safely, that was at the top of a tower, when a man, a stranger to me, followed me into the elevator. You had to have your resident key. It was clear to me he was not a resident. It was clear to me that he was following me up to my isolated Yale dorm room. It was clear to me that he had no reason to be there because there was nothing going on at that time in the so-called common room, the only other room on my floor of the tower, at the top of the tower, skinny tower. And so he followed me up to my isolated Yale dorm room in an unauthorized manner. And I did exactly as I had been instructed, and I called the non-emergency helpline of the Yale campus police exactly as I had been instructed to do. And the first thing I said to the police officer who answered was, I don't even know if I need your help. And he said, well, just tell me what happened. So I told him what happened. And I actually tried to avoid a confrontation with Jean-Louis Renison. I did this little sauna dance, and I went up this separate little stairwell that went into the interior of the little common room. There was nothing going on there. It was dark. No one was in there. And I waited for him, hoping that he would leave. And then I was trying to avoid a confrontation with him. But he hadn't left, even though I thought that he had. And I actually thought for a moment about not even speaking with him and just, ignoring him and going into my dorm room. And now I wish that I had, of course. But anyway, the point being is that this was absolutely a situation where if he had been a white man instead of a black man, everyone would have been on my side and would have been screaming that this is a Me Too situation and that it was, that I behaved completely appropriately, that and completely reasonably. I was just trying to take reasonable efforts to enter my isolated Yale dorm room safely. He followed me. He was a stranger who followed me in a clearly unauthorized manner, who had no reason to, as far as I could tell, had absolutely no reason to be there except for the fact that he followed me up there. And so this is why none of that mattered. So they've been screaming about how, the Yale dorms, especially, during the Kavanaugh hearings, which happened kind of right after the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax at Yale. They're screaming at the Kavanaugh hearings about how Yale student housing is a cesspool. No woman is safe in Yale student housing. Women are being raped left and right on Yale's campus. But what they did then for Living While Black, because they were specifically targeting vulnerable white women like me, is that now none of that mattered. None of that mattered. Don't believe Sarah, she's a white woman. Don't believe Sarah, she's crazy. Don't believe Sarah, she's poor white trash. Don't believe Sarah because the stranger, who was a man who followed her in an unauthorized manner up to her isolated Yale dorm room, so she responded in an appropriate manner to make sure that she could enter her dorm room safely, happened to be a Black man. And so for that reason alone, and because of woke intersectional feminism, and the foundational premise is that it is impossible for a Black person to make a false accusation of racism against a white person. That is the foundational premise of woke intersectional feminism. And so now that just throws out, just pulls the rug out from under everything that was being claimed with Me Too, right? Now all of a sudden it's don't believe Sarah because she's a white woman. Now all of a sudden it's Sarah does not have a right to take reasonable precautions to enter her isolated Yale dorm room safely when she's followed in an unauthorized manner by a strange man up to her isolated Yale dorm room. So this is why the Living While Black movement, when it was turned into a race hoax and a blood sport to target and demonize white women, this is when Me Too was killed. This is when Me Too was killed. This is when Me Too was killed. And so everything that was said about what was done, those articles that talked about the horrifying treatment, the mobbing, the global vilification, the global defamation, the online abuse and stalking of Amber Heard, everything that those articles talked about being done to Amber Heard, those articles could have been written about me, what was done to me. I was vilified. I was mocked on SNL. I was ridiculed. I was vilified on a global scale as a genocidal villain. I was accused left and right of being a white supremacist, including by Roxane Gay, of being a Nazi, including by Richard Painter recently, and by Daryl Lamont Jenkins, and just like Tim Wise on MSNBC with Joy Reid and Chris Hayes accused me of trying to lynch Black students at Yale, was accused of trying to lynch Black students at Yale, of being a Nazi, of being just like Ahmaud Arbery's killers. Like, it was surreal and hellish and insane and racist and evil. Okay, everything that they talked about that was done to Amber Heard and how this signals the death of Me Too because it was done to Amber Heard, all of that was done to me, and it was done to me by the woke intersectional feminists who are now screaming and yelling about how Me Too is dead because this is being done to Amber Heard. You woke KKK monsters did the same thing to me. So when you did it to me, it didn't signal the death of Me Too because you were doing it to a white woman, but Amber Heard is white. Oh, but Amber Heard is a rich and famous movie star and I'm poor white trash. So now we understand the dynamics in play here. Now we understand the racial and class dynamics in play here. So it didn't signal the death of Me Too when the woke intersectional feminists did to me what was done to Amber Heard. Number one comment made to me by woke intersectional feminists during the witch hunt at Yale to tell me that I'm so ugly that I should go hang myself like my dead brother. Number one comment made to me by woke intersectional feminists. So when it happens to Amber Heard, it signals the death of Me Too and a backlash against Me Too. But when the woke intersectional feminists did it to me, because I'm not just a white woman, but I'm poor white trash and I'm crazy and I was an interloper at Yale and they were gatekeeping for the Ivy League and gatekeeping for the Ivory Tower and the institutions of power. So when the woke intersectional feminists did the same thing to me, that does not signal the death of Me Too. So basically, they're just bigots and frauds, the woke KKK monsters, everyone who's screaming about how the online vilification and abuse of Amber Heard signals the death of Me Too. All of these bigots and charlatans and frauds and liars they and hypocrites, they did the exact same thing to me, and it didn't signal the death of Me Too then. But actually, it did. That is when Me Too actually died, because it became perfectly obvious to anyone with half a brain that they were all liars and bigots and frauds and charlatans and hypocrites, and that they didn't really care about sexual harassment, and they didn't really care about sexual violence, and they didn't really care about sexual trauma. I am an adult survivor of egregious sexual trauma and violence, including childhood sexual trauma and violence. So, everything that they said, if they actually believed in everything that they said that they believed in, police accountability and transparency is another one, then they would have supported me. But they didn't. And this is why when Living While Black was turned into a race hoax and a blood sport to target and demonize white women, that is what killed Me Too. Because anyone with half a brain could see that all of the woke KKK monsters are liars and bigots and frauds. And so yeah, and I'm gonna stop this now because I don't want this video to get too long, but I will have all of that's basically what I wanted to say. I wanted to make that point crystal clear, and I think I did. So I will have all of my fundraising links below, and I love you so much, and have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.